Hey guys, it's Frank. This is part 2 of my video journal for the development of NerdRAGE, a game for the Android platform. Over the last couple of days, we've come up with quite a few good ideas for the NerdRAGE game mechanics and a lot of the plot and storyline, which is starting to fill itself in. I'd like to thank my friend Jake Fortier for a lot of good ideas that we'll be trying to implement over the next couple of weeks. But for tonight's video, I wanted to show something that I've created that I think is pretty neat. It's a very basic critical chance algorithm. For those not familiar, in most RPGs there exists the concept of the critical chance, or a critical hit. And that basically means that when you're attacking, you have a small but varying percentage of hitting a critical, which would be, in this case, a stronger hit. So here's what we've got here. I've created a method, scroll down to it, called damage. And we look at this, we can see that it's a public method, and this damage method takes an integer variable, which is called attack. And so what that would be the base attack power for whatever attack is being used. And it returns an integer value, which would be the total damage done as modified by the crit. So here in the variable declaration, we have the variable damage, which is just initialized to 0. Then we have the integer crit chance, and crit chance equals this getNerdRAGE method, which basically just queries the system's databanks to see what the player's current NerdRAGE score is. And NerdRAGE is pretty much the principal stat in our game. And NerdRAGE can be anywhere between 0 and 5 at any given time based on the player's achievements and what they've done. And of course, the higher the better. The next variable is dice, and what it does is it calls that dice method, and that dice method we wrote a couple of days ago, and that just generates a random number between 1 and 100. Okay, so down to the actual algorithm. The algorithm is just a very basic series of if-then loops. So the first if-then loop asks if the condition here is met of crit chance equals 0, which would mean the person has 0 NerdRAGE. In that case, it looks to that dice roll, and if the dice roll is between 0 and 95, then damage equals attack, which would mean not a critical hit. But if it's between 96 and 100, then damage equals attack times 2. That would be a critical hit. So we see that even if the person has 0 NerdRAGE, they do still have a small, about 5% chance of scoring a critical hit. Now if we scroll down a little, we see if crit chance equals 1. So if they do have a little bit of a NerdRAGE, then the conditions would change. Then it would be if the dice roll is between 0 and 90, then it would not be a critical hit. But if it was between 91 and 100, then it would be a critical hit. So there we see a little bit better chances. And then scrolling down, it basically follows the same pattern. If NerdRAGE is 2, then between 0 and 80, not a critical hit. 81 and 100, a critical hit. Scrolling down all the way, following the same pattern, incrementing by 10, to if critical chance equals 5, in which case it would be pretty much a 50-50 chance of scoring a critical hit. If 0 to 50, not a critical. If 51 to 100, a critical hit. Now we see this other little piece of code here where it says crit chance equals crit chance minus minus. What that is, whenever you see minus minus like that, that's instructions, that's to decrement or to decrease by 1 the value of crit chance. So the idea here is that if someone does score a critical, then whatever their NerdRAGE is going to be decreased by 1, and then here set NerdRAGE is going to store that new decreased NerdRAGE value so that the person now has 1 less NerdRAGE point. The idea behind this is that, of course, if someone was to get, full nerd rage, they could just go around scoring crit after crit and win the game probably very easily. So this kind of gives a little cost to scoring a crit by extinguishing one of those points, just to make things a little bit more fair and a little bit more, hopefully, fun and challenging to play. All right, well, that's about it for tonight's video, but hopefully this was interesting. All right, thanks. Bye.